Hello and welcome to a discussion of freedom of speech and civil liberties and security concerns, sponsored by Western Iowa Tech Community College's Humanities Division as part of our celebration of Freedom of Speech Week. Our presentation today is being videotaped for Community Access Cable TV by Siouxland Community Media. Our discussion today will be about 1 hour in length. We're going to discuss questions of security, of terrorism, and civil liberties. Our panel, starting to my right, features Don Dorn, a police science and academy instructor. Rhonda Briggs, a psychology instructor here at WIT. Manoj Patil, to my left, instructor in chemistry. Frank Hefner, Harley riding historian. And Paul Guggenheimer, a writer and actor and instructor in English here at the college. We're going to speak for, as I say, just about an hour, and the panelists will carry that discussion. If at the end of that time you want to engage in an interactive discussion with some of the panelists, we'll try and do that as well. But for the first 50 minutes or so, we'll keep it as a panel discussion. My name, by the way, is Eddie Dunn. I'm on the staff here at the college. So let's get right into it. I'm going to direct our first question to Rhonda Briggs, to my right here. And it has to do with terrorism. Is there a difference in protecting citizens from international terrorism and domestic terrorism?
Well, watching the nightly news, it's hard to avoid the dangers of the world we live in, but I think when it comes down to the person that drives home at night, that's sitting at the dinner table, they want to be safe, they want to feel safe, they want to feel safe sending their children to school, and I don't know that they really care if that danger comes from internally from people from the United States or from international terrorism.
Panelists, feel free to join in at any time.
I would agree with Rhonda. I think we need to watch the Tim McVeighs of this world just as carefully as we watch anyone else that would do us harm.
Frank, let me direct this question to you, if I may. Are people over-concerned with privacy and civil liberties?
Are Americans over-concerned with privacy and civil liberties? I would say probably not. Looking at it from a historical perspective, right after the Constitution was put into effect, the Congress passed the Alien and Sedition Acts, and a lot of people supported that at the time. There's been several cases in our history where, because the public, let's say, was outraged or concerned about something, Congress passed an act that would be considered, today highly unconstitutional. So I think when most people they don't like something, they're really not thinking in terms of civil liberties, right? If they hear something, let's say, that they believe is seditious, they want their legislature to do something about it. We shouldn't allow that type of talk. An example was the professor, I think at the start of the Iraqi war, that made the comment he hopes a million American soldiers die in the war. A lot of people were angry about that, right? And they were trying to take action against it. So I think people are more concerned if they hear something they really don't like. They're more concerned about that than they are maybe of.
Well, yes, that individual is exercising freedom of speech, and therefore I
back them up 100%. I don't think you hear that argument as much.
We'll come back to that in a minute. Don Dorn, I want to ask you this question first, though. What kinds of technology are being used in the name of national security? Perhaps you could run that down just a little bit. And are they being misused?
Well, the most common form that we're hearing about today is wiretaps. And actually, this began in the U.S. Supreme Court back in 1930s with Carroll versus the United States talked about how evidence that had a chance to get away before it could be effectively prosecuted could still be considered viable evidence. So it has a history of there. Also, the FISA Act of 1978, Federal Intelligence Security Act, laid the groundwork for wiretapping clear back, as I said, in the 70s. So I think that it's something that's absolutely necessary today. Is it something that we need to keep a close eye on? Absolutely. I would agree with that. But we have to use the technology that's available to us.
Well, Frank, we return to you then and any other constitutional scholars that may be aboard today. What about the recent controversy about the NSA wiretaps of private phone calls? How does that fit into this discussion?
Well, NSA, that's a national security agency, has some of the most, they always have some of the most sophisticated equipment in the world, and they're always probably ahead of the civilian technology curve. And they are forbidden from their charter from eavesdropping, let's say, on communications internal in the United States. But that was at a time when the technology was the telephone. Now you have an issue, of course, with cell phones and other types of communication that cross the borders. So it's really complicated, because if you have a communication that's coming in, let's say, by a cell phone, well, that's not a landline anymore. That's, in effect, a radio broadcast. And if it's coming from outside the country, well, technically, that fits within NSA's charter. And it's getting pretty cloudy anymore, because it was a lot easier probably with a simple phone tap. You know, you'd have to go to a judge and get the tap. But with all the new means of communication, especially with computers, it's not nearly as clear as it used to be. So, i.e., there's a lot of tough decisions that have to be made by the people, you know, let's say in NSA about, well, are we violating the charter or not? And if there's a lot of pressure put on to intercept, well, if they're intercepting something coming in, can they intercept something coming out of the country? It's just, life isn't as simple as it used to be, you know, when we just had simple rotary telephones. So it's part of the problem.
Part of the question, I think, comes up to the presumption of privacy. Some of what Frank was talking about, when you had a rotary telephone, which maybe some of you out there have never seen, there was a hard line, and you actually had to physically tap into the line somewhere. Now, with a cell phone, if you go to Radio Shack and you're smart enough, you can get equipment where you can pick up those transmissions, because they're radio transmissions. So then the question comes, what is our presumption of privacy? Do I presume when I'm speaking on my cell phone that is a private call, even though somebody with a baby monitor in their house as I'm driving by might pick up that phone call? So that makes the question cloudy also. We often presume that our conversations are private, and in reality, they are out there in the air, very easily picked up.
So in some senses, this controversy, this NSA controversy, is nothing new. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
There was an issue when President Nixon was president, this issue came up. By the way, I actually worked at an NSA field post overseas. That was my job. I eavesdropped North Koreans. But we had the most sophisticated equipment in the world. Anything that went off over a radio frequency, we could intercept. So if I heard an American overseas talking to another American, and they were talking about something, and I heard it, do I report it? Do I say something about it? You know, those types of issues came up in 72, 73, 74. You know, you've got sophisticated equipment. What do you do if you hear something, even if it's an American? You know, you've got to report that, and then someone up the chain has to make a decision about it. By the way, keep in mind that even if you're an American, that NSA eavesdrop, they have special eavesdropping. We eavesdrop on our own people. You know, the spies are being eavesdropped on by the spyers. So if I got on the phone or even called home, you know, they were eavesdropping me because I was in a security intense environment. So, you know, in that situation, you have to agree to be open to someone listening to you.
Manoj, go ahead.
One of the things I heard actually is they were tapping phones. For example, let's say there are two terrorists, one in U.S., one is talking from other country, let's say they're talking, and let's say they talk about these terms like terrorists and bombs and all those things, what they usually do is it automatically triggers a tab. So when you hear terms like they have like a database, when those terms click basically, there is an automatic tapping going on. Then what happens is then those things are recorded. And now the problem what happened was they were talking different languages, so then they brought an interpreter, basically a software basically that converts any language to English, and then it's tabbed. So I thought that was pretty excellent, doing that to tab information if they're exchanging some information which are not supposed to do it. And that was by wire tab basically.
Paul, let's get you involved in the discussion. The Patriot Act, since its passage shortly after 9/11, has been consistently controversial. Can you think of some good things that have come from it as well as some negative things?
I think that I think it's been mostly negative, to be honest with you. I think it's an abusive act. I think that I think we all agree. I think everybody on this panel agrees that we live in dangerous times and that we want to be secure, we want to be safe from terrorists. The question is, how do we protect ourselves, and at what point are we protecting ourselves to the extent that we're trampling on people's rights, the rights that were an integral part of the establishment of this country with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, the rights that we all have, that all of you out there have. I think the danger is right now we have a president who is abusing his powers. He talks about the president's inherent powers. He has used those to authorize a terrorist surveillance program without the approval of FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. He has lied about not wiretapping without getting a court order to do so, and yet has gone ahead and done it. He has violated the FISA provisos. And what is happening in the United States now is that we've got George Orwell. We've got Big Brother. We are listening in on people, and I don't think anybody has a problem with somebody who has an established connection to Al-Qaeda listening into a terrorist's phone calls. But when you're doing it, when you're listening in on the conversations of U.S. citizens, American citizens, without having a reasonable idea that this person is engaged in some sort of terrorist activities, and you're doing it just to do it, doing it just because you can, just because you have the technology, that is wrong. It is un-American. It violates the Constitution. It violates everything that this country is supposed to stand for, and it affects everybody out here, because this is what your world is turning into. The rights that I grew up with, that I was taught that we had, you're losing those rights. You're in the process now of losing those rights. So you ought to be concerned, because these are dangerous times, and I think we're going down a very slippery slope.
Frank.
Well, I'd like to respond. Number one, I want to keep the personality and the politics out of it and look at it more from a governmental point of view. The world we live in today is much murkier than it used to be. It used to be, going back to 1648 in the Treaty of Westphalia, you have relations of states with other states. If someone attacked you, did something that took your embassy, it was really clear, we know who did it, we know who we're going to go to war against. We live in a very uncertain, unclean world. Now we have countries that sponsor terrorists. They are sitting in a country having free haven, they have lots of money, they have cells in other countries. So now, as what happened on September 11, we get attacked. All right, were we attacked by a country? No. The old international relations, the nice, crisp, clear world that we used to have, does not exist anymore. The President of the United States takes an oath, like anyone that goes into government, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, but he's also responsible for the safety of the American public. If you're the President of the United States and you have a terrorist act because there was some tip-off on a radio broadcast somewhere, or a telephone communication, and someone in NSA did not report it to the President and he didn't take some action. Now, if the President said, I'm sorry, we just had a bombing and some Americans died. Now, the reason I didn't prevent that was because I'm so concerned with your rights, and I know you'll all understand it, He'd get crucified if he did that. The President of the United States has a heavy, heavy responsibility. I think Paul way oversimplified that responsibility.
Let me ask you something, Frank. Should the President have a court order? Should he follow what the courts have established as a rule of law before he starts spying on people?
Well,
should FISA apply?
Again, the world is not so clear-cut anymore.
Let me just answer my question. Should the President follow court order? Should he follow proper procedure when he engages in surveillance?
You set up a mousetrap, and I'm not going to bite. All right? I'm not going to get narrowed in on that question. It's
a very simple question.
Look,
should he follow the rules or not?
The President of the United States, and I'm not here to defend President. Look, I can give you all kinds of historical examples of where President Clinton did some decisions. President Nixon did some decisions. President Johnson did some decisions. So let's keep the politics out of it. The weight of responsibility for the President is he's primarily responsible for protecting our safety. Now, does that mean we're going to cross some boundaries? Do I think there's some problems and threats in the Patriot Act? Absolutely. But what are you going to do? You have a world in which you have terrorists. You have people that hate this country. They will use any weakness. You have to have some people out there on the frontiers that are eavesdropping, that are trying to spot these people and head it off before you have an attack. It's not easy. It's not clear and black and white. You cannot reduce it. That's what I'm trying to say. You cannot reduce protecting American citizens to some black and white formula. And when in doubt, if someone out there in an eavesdropping post hears anything that's suspicious, they're going to report it. Now, that could be a violation, but they're playing on the safe side of it. Is that understandable?
Well, the problem I have is when the President contradicts himself, he says that the government does not wiretap without getting a court order before we do so, and then he goes ahead and does it anyway. We have to be able, I agree with you, the President has to keep us safe. We all understand that concept. The problem I'm having, and that some Americans are having, and I'm not trying to be hostile about this, but I am a concerned citizen. I think we all ought to be concerned. When we trust the President at his word to say that I will never spy on you without a court order, and then he does it anyway, and he lies about it, then we have a problem. We can't have the people that are supposed to protect us abusing the principles and abusing essentially the trust of the people and the faith that we are placing in them to protect us.
If you could wave a magic wand, what would happen?
If I could wave a magic wand, let me give you a quote. Okay.
Just if you could wave a magic wand, what would you prefer happen?
I would prefer what Benjamin Franklin prefers.
And
he said that a country that would sacrifice liberty for security deserves neither liberty or security.
That came in the Second Constitutional Convention, but they also said that the U.S. Constitution is not a suicide pact. If tomorrow we learn that Houston is about to be vaporized, and
you can get the court order in hours, in a matter of hours.
Wait a minute, but let's just say that we have, in 20 minutes, we know where this detonator is. Do you really want us to go get a court order to save Houston?
Is it tomorrow or 20 minutes?
I said 20. I gave you 20 minutes.
Okay, you said tomorrow, so you're changing it? You're saying
I'm saying if it happened tomorrow. I'm saying if the threat came tomorrow, and within 20 minutes, because the phone conversation had been tapped, we learned that the detonator is in Dallas.
Right.
Do we get the detonator, or do we go get the court order? Is it a suicide pact?
Okay, well, are we talking about spying, or are we talking about preventing a crime?
We're talking about coming upon the information as a result of spying.
How did you get the information?
Through the wiretapping.
Okay, and did you get a court order to do the wiretapping in the first? In other words, on what basis did you suspect somebody in order to conduct a wiretap?
So if you could wave a magic wand, no phone call would ever be tapped unless you had a preceding court order.
Those are your words.
No, that's what you're saying.
And you're not giving me a clear scenario.
I'm giving you a perfect scenario.
Well, okay, so how did we come upon the information that somebody was going to plant a bomb and detonate it?
I'm saying let's make the assumption that
we come upon the information. In a matter of hours, you can tap the person's phone. So, but you said you're already saying we had a wiretap. So in order to get the wiretap, you get the court's permission, then you find out, then you act. It's a very simple procedure. Okay. Why is the president bypassing the court order?
Okay, can we get out of the made-up scenarios, because we have plenty of real-life scenarios on a daily basis.
I
that
want
we
to give
deal with.
a historical example. President Lincoln, during the Civil War, had to deal with a very, very real issue. He actually violated the Constitution in writ of habeas corpus. He had to make a decision. And when he was said, "Why did you do it?" he said, "Am I to mess with the fire that's burning on the porch while the house is burning down?" He made a decision as president that he's got to save the house. And look, sometimes I can give you other examples of presidents that have to make these decisions because in some of these situations, like Don said, if I was at a listening post and I heard something, we didn't have time to get the proper wiretap, go through a job, or go through a judge, you know what I would do? I guarantee you what I would do. I'd do something to prevent it. And I think almost any American would do that. And it's not, you cannot, again, we don't live in a clear-cut world. Is there a danger if that power is abused? Absolutely.
Okay.
I guess what I'm saying is that there should be a procedure, and that if we're going to change the rules, there should be it shouldn't be the president deciding, you know what, this is the way I'm going to do it, and that's going to be that. We should go through Congress, we should go through the courts, we should have a discussion about what is the procedure going to be. I'm not saying that everybody can or should know about every move that our intelligence agencies make, but there needs to be a system, there always needs to be a system of checks and balances, because if there isn't, then you're going to have abuses. And what I'm saying is, with all due respect, gentlemen and ladies, with all due respect, I'm just saying that what we're starting to see are abuses, and we need to be careful before those abuses get out of control.
Okay, we have other questions that I would love for us to get to. Perhaps we can come back to this, perhaps repeatedly. But let's move on. I want to direct this to Manoj. Speaking specifically of the terrorism threat, there has not been another major attack on the U.S. since 9/11. It's happened in London. It's happened other places around the globe, but not here. Any theories as to why?
One simple reason is, let me pick mine as an example here. Nowadays, let's say I leave U.S. for my vacation to India and I have to come back. The amount of paper trail, the amount of paperwork I have to do is so much. So they usually track me down. So let's say I go to Germany, they know I'm in Germany at this particular day and this particular time. I go to India, then I'm gone. They don't know it. But when I come back, as soon as I leave India to US, they can start tracking me down. So what happens is there is so much paperwork, there is so much information about a single person that they can easily track in US. There was a bombing in India, there was a bombing in Mumbai, India, where 400 people died. This happened on 9/11 this year, actually. It was a horrible incident. 6 bombs went off in 8 minutes. Why? Because India as a country is not as technologically advanced as in US. First thing. The security system is not advanced. Of course, these guys were talking about the wiretapping. I wanted to get into that, but I don't want to get into that right now. But one of the technologies is to track it down before it happens. And Indians, though we have a good system, it's due to huge population, people are coming from Pakistan and other countries. They are all the time infiltrating to India. So it's very difficult to track them. But in US, everything has a paper trail, lots of work, and security system is advanced. And now they have biometrics. There's a fingerprint matching. So that's the reason I can say one of the reasons why something has not happened here is the advancement in the technology in the security system. And next is they are making sure that they do a lot more paperwork, a lot more background check, a lot more criminal history background check, just to make sure that any person who is entering United States, his background is known, what he has done, where his bachelor's is from, what type of family background he has. That's the reason, right?
Well, we're much more alert, too. After something like that happens, of course, all the police departments, the sheriff's departments, the military, all the agencies are going to be much more alert. You know, the recent example of the plane carrying the pitcher that hit the apartment building in New York, well, what happened? They scrambled jets, right? I guarantee you that there are people analyzing that to make sure that someone didn't see that somewhere that's going to use that as another means to hit us. So we're much more alert, thinking about ways in which terrorists can attack us. And when you're alert, and you're on guard, you're definitely, you have a better chance of trying to prevent those types of scenarios. And again, we also, I guarantee you, our listening posts throughout the world are much more focused on things such as that right now also. Anything that gives us the least little bit tip of a terrorist attack is going to get reported, and we're going to at least be on the lookout for it.
I think the biggest advancement, if I may interject, is that you finally have agencies, rather than competing with each other, cooperating. We had a situation before 9/11 where the FBI and the CIA weren't even talking to each other. I spoke to a woman who was involved in the capture of Moussaoui, or the arrest of Zacarias Moussaoui, in Minneapolis. She said that they were trying to get information out about this guy. People in the FBI weren't talking to the CIA. Nobody was cooperating. They were competing with each other. 9/11 could have been prevented more easily than I think any of us really want to come to grips with. What we're seeing now finally in this country is agencies working alongside one another. As Frank said, much more vigilance. But don't fool yourselves. I don't think we're at a point where we can say that we're safe. We hear about airport security being breached all the time. And I wonder, let's just say, for example, the crash that occurred in New York last week. Let's suppose there was a dirty bomb on that plane. Let's suppose it was intentional. And we talked about the jets scrambling and everything else. As fast as they began to scramble, could they, if that was an attack, could that have been prevented? I wonder.
Well,
I need to add something here based on personal experience. I'm a trained linguist. I worked in the field. I want to correct something Paul said. Even when I was doing my duty out in the field, in the White House, there's the National Security Council, all the listening posts, all the people for the CIA, NSA, all the other agencies. As just someone that was low down on a listening post, if I heard something or spotted something that I perceived was so important, I had direct access to the White House. And I'm telling you, I did it once. It was a mistake. I thought I heard something. I thought I was going to get chewed out. I was given a commendation because I had the courage, as someone of low rank, that I heard something and I reported it and went right to the National Security Council. So when it comes to immediate threats, there is cooperation because all that's funneled directly in the White House. It's been done. I'm speaking, I did the job. I had the clearance to do.
Frank,
No.
why are people in the FBI saying that 9/11 could have been prevented? Why are they saying that the CIA and the FBI weren't cooperating? Why are they saying that?
You've been reading too many books.
I talked to an agent
I did the
who
job.
was involved in the arrest of Zacarias Moussaoui.
I'll jump in here.
Rhonda.
I agree with Paul that because I know even on a local level, our fire department couldn't talk to our police department. And the same thing was true. I mean, I understand what you're saying, Frank, that you had that ability to go straight to the White House. But even if you went straight to the White House, other organizations probably wouldn't have known that you had made that call. And that is, if there was anything good that came out of 9/11, it was that we woke up, or the holes in the air traffic control, that those planes actually disappeared for minutes at a time because they were being handed off. And so we understood that now. One of the things that Paul said, though, sparked a thought that when he said fighter jets were scrambled for that little plane that the picture was flying, the tightrope that we walk living in the United States, because we are a free country, but we want to be a safe country, is, I think if one of those fighter jets had fired on that small plane because it was getting to the point where we really didn't know, not just that plane would have been destroyed, it would have taken out some buildings. And I'm guessing that there probably all hell would have broken loose because of the damage done. And that's the tightrope. And I don't have an answer for that question because, or when Manoj was saying all of the paperwork that he goes through to come and go, from his home country to here. And I remember when the mad cow outbreak in Washington State, I think, and there were some jokes about how we can find the calf that was born and where the mother stood when she had that calf that had the mad cow, and why can't we find the terrorist? It's because we live in the United States, and we will not allow ourselves to have ear tags like we do with cattle. And so, you know, it really is a tightrope, and it's not a simple question.
I think one thing I would like to add, what U.S. has done way better after September 11th was to develop the Homeland Security. By developing Homeland Security, they have made all the agencies come together. And even outside countries, you know, even if I go to India, people in India, surprisingly know about Homeland Security. They have come up in the United States. So that is kind of one reason why there are less things happening now, though it's happening in the rest of the world.
But a major consistent criticism of the Homeland Security effort has been that too much energy and attention has been devoted to air travel, to the airports, and not enough to our ports.
Yes.
And our rail systems, and our automobile and trucking systems. How would you react to that?
Yes, you're right. Actually, one thing Homeland Security, according to me, they would do is make the homeland first safe. You know, they are worrying about the external travel, just leaving the country and people coming from the outside. If they make the borders more secure, like they're worrying about getting the nuclear material through the ship cargoes. So if they can block those things first and then worry about just the external matters, maybe that's a better option.
I want to add, I just want to make sure everybody understands that each agency in the government, we're making some assumptions here. Each agency has a mission and a charter that's controlled and was set forth by Congress. NSA has a charter. It has a different mission from the CIA. The DEA has a different mission. The FBI does domestic surveillance. It has a different mission. Every agency in the government has a particular mission and a budget. It is complicated. In the past, Pearl Harbor, we saw this problem. We saw it with the Iranian hostage crisis, trying to get that information shared. In some cases, you have to understand, you're talking about, even with Homeland Security, you're talking about huge amounts of information. It's trying to find what? The valued information. Somebody has to spot it, and they have to get it to the right place. So there are certain even constitutional limitations set up, in Congress as to a charter. FBI can do domestic surveillance. The NSA cannot do. So they have different purposes, different missions. It would be easy, if they were all one agency, then we wouldn't have the departments anymore. It's like law enforcement agencies. When the federal law enforcement has to work with the local police department, the local sheriff's department, the Department of Investigation in Iowa, there's channels they have to go through. That's because they have their mission. So let's not oversimplify the problem here. There's thousands of pieces of information on a daily basis. It's people that are trained, like I was, to be out there in the field to spot something. They get it to the right place. There's always been the National Security Council. That was set up right after World War II. Homeland Security was designed to also start to incorporate internal intelligence with external intelligence. So, let's not oversimplify the problem. And I can guarantee you there are a lot of really good Americans out there that are trying to protect you, and if they think you're in danger, it's going to get to the right person really quick. Let's not play games here. We got a lot of people that are all over the world that they want to protect you. They're not out to eavesdrop on you.
Okay.
Can I just ask a kind of a question? Would you say that, Frank, since you have a lot of expertise in this area, would you say that we have improved since 9/11, that we've learned something from that things have changed?
Things have changed what? We're better protected?
In terms of our approach to protecting Americans. I guess the question that I'm wondering about, and I'm not trying to play devil's advocate here. When we captured a terrorist in August of 2001 who said that he was involved in a plot to blow up, to fly airplanes into buildings, why didn't we, among all this information that we're accruing, and I'm just asking a question here, why didn't we act upon that better? And we as a country, the CIA as an agency, Granted, this was before Homeland Security. I don't know, maybe a better question would be, with Homeland Security in force now as an agency, do we have a better net to catch those kinds of things?
Look, hindsight's a wonderful tool. Everyone can make the right decision if you have hindsight.
I'm just asking
I
a
could have
question.
prevented Pearl Harbor if I could use hindsight. So when you get some information, somebody's coming in. Now, when you go after the fact and you say, why didn't somebody act on this? Well, who had the information? Was it
The FBI.
Okay. What was done with the information? I'd have to see the trail of how that information passed up, who made the decision, was it confirmed? I mean, there's a lot. With hindsight, it's easy to go back and find this information and say we should have done this.
They may have acted
I'm just saying,
properly.
are we better? Have we learned
Yes.
something? Are we better protected now? And then, if so, and kind of coming back to, I think, the point of all of our discussion here is, at what point do we decide that, okay, you know, spying, I mean, I'm not saying that surveillance is cool, let's face it. If we have the technology to do it, everybody wants to catch the bad guys. But at what point are we going to get to the level where we're spying on people that we're just listening in on the phone conversations of average Americans who aren't necessarily suspects, we're just doing it because, and by we I mean the government, we're just doing it because we can.
How do they become suspects, Paul?
Well, how did the people in Guantanamo become?
They were already suspects. They were. That was a.
But we have people that have been held down there for 5 years and haven't been charged with a crime.
Well,
if we can do that,
let's not change the subject.
I'm not changing the subject. I'm saying if we can do that, who's to say that the government can't just decide that because they want to listen into somebody, they can, because they think that because of something they wrote or said, that they are therefore perhaps a subversive, and so who is determining who is the subversive and why we're going to spy?
Well, historically, that has happened.
It has happened.
I mean, in the McCarthy.
McCarthy's a perfect
McCarthy,
example. Nixon is a perfect example.
Well, it's historically it's happened many times, but you know, again, you know, and maybe you've heard it many times, but we have to be right every time. The terrorists only have to be right once, right?
Yes, yes.
So that goes to. You know, how could we have stopped 9/11 with our level of understanding and somewhat naivete of that American philosophy that you know, we were naive that it couldn't happen here, and so those terrorists, which it still boggles my imagination that the terrorists took over the planes with box cutters. Box cutters. You know, maybe you could kill one person with a box cutter, but you couldn't kill many people. But our understanding of what it was to be hijacked in 2001 was that you did what the hijackers said, you kept the people safe. That was the protocol. And that protocol got the towers taken down because we were dealing with the level of knowledge, understanding, and naivete of our free society. That, you know, what was the latest thing? That you can't bring hair gel and water, and then it became that it was, you know, a way to get $5 for a bottle of water, you know, before you got on the airplane. We're always trying to, you know, they've got the pea, and we're trying to move the shells around. So, you know, we're never going to be ahead, probably.
Yeah.
I want to just use another example. In the Vietnam War, after the Cali incident, all American soldiers were trained. If your commanding officer orders something that you believe is unconstitutional, you are not to follow the order. You are to turn it in. It's the same thing with training for people in the intelligence field. Look, anyone that works for NSA, I can assure you, they don't want to see their grandkid, their niece, their nephew blown up by a terrorist. They know what their job is. They also know that there's constitutional protections. And the vast majority of those people, if they were given an order to do something that was illegal, they're not going to do it. I mean, there's a certain assumption here. There's a big conspiracy, and that everyone that's an NSA or CIA is some kind of a spook spy that wants to violate your civil liberties. That's not true. Just like all police officers. Are there a few mistakes? The police officers make mistakes, but the vast majority of them, they're just like you. They're a citizen. They're not going to violate the law. I mean, the vast majority are very good people. They're very well trained. I can assure you they've been told this crosses the line.
Okay.
But what about the minority that do cross the line?
We have, I'm not part of the discussion, but I do want to bring Don back into it here. We have just a few minutes left. The basis of this discussion today is free speech, freedom of speech, and civil liberties, as much as terrorism per se. Don, let me ask you, at the risk of oversimplifying, it seems that we've defined the issue here of possible erosion of our civil liberties. How far do we go in increasing our security without letting go of the thing it is we're trying to preserve?
Well, honestly, I am concerned about the Patriot Act, FISA. There is a line. Where it exactly exists, I don't know. But I do know that you can't just be concretely one way or the other on the situation. We've got to find a compromise, because if we continue to fight and polarize ourselves against each other, we're never going to get to that point.
Yeah, actually, I would say it's easy to compromise on. It's better to compromise on civil liberties and compromise on safety. You want to live first, then think about your civil liberties. So I would say if they have to compromise on civil liberty first. Give its safety importance. You don't want to die unnecessarily. Safety stands first.
And in the last few moments we have, I'd like to offer this to the entire panel. What do you all think are the major 2 or 3 issues of freedom of speech that are out there right now, and where are they headed? Anybody?
The major issues of freedom of speech?
Like, for instance, the 10 Commandments issue in Alabama.
I don't think you can have your cake and eat it too. There are some vile things that have been protected. In my opinion, they are vile things that have been protected under the Constitution, under the First Amendment. And while I don't like it, I have to support it, because you either abide by the Constitution or you don't. However, I think there's a very fine line there.
I agree with Don. I think that, I'm somebody that flag burning, for example, is protected under our Constitution. When I see somebody burn the flag, and fortunately, it's not something we see every day. It's not as popular a form of protest as it used to be. But when you see somebody do it, personally, I just think, why are you doing that? I mean, what a stupid form of expression. Nevertheless, I support a person's right to do it because it is protected in our Constitution. It does fall under free speech, even though I may not like it. And I agree with you, Don. There are things that are protected under free speech. Nazis marching through Skokie, Illinois, telling the Jews that they ought to be in concentration camps, that are protected under our civil liberties. Unfortunately, that's part of living in a free society, and it's not easy and it's not simple.
Go ahead.
Well, a good book was written on this, if you want to read it. It was called Freedom of Speech for Me, but Not for Thee. And I see on both sides of the spectrum. He's mentioned one, flag burning, which would ire conservatives. Now, on the other side, like the Mapplethorpe exhibit a few years ago in New York, National Endowment of the Arts money, taxpayers' money, was used to support an art exhibit that many perceived was crude, had and even child pornography, and people on the left supported that's well, we have to support the arts. A bunch of tax. Jesse Helms, when he was senator, was so irate he was trying to cancel money for the National Endowment of the Arts because he was upset. Now, what's worse, government censorship or having total freedom of speech in that regard? Now, even though I personally was revolted by what I saw in that exhibit, I would agree that that's art. But yet, American taxpayers' money is supporting something like that. And, of course, when you have American taxpayers' money supporting something like that a lot of Americans agree that's trash, that's not art, they don't like it, what happens is it's cases like that create these issues in Congress where people want to call for more censorship. So, again, flag burning, that makes a lot of people irate, right? So we have a flag burning amendment that's proposed in Congress. Why? People are irate about it. And it's these few issues, and usually one issue makes a certain group of people irate, another issue makes some other irate. So if we're going to protect freedom of speech, we protect freedom of speech. Thomas Jefferson, I'll leave you the quote about that. When they put the Constitution in effect, Thomas Jefferson said, rights are like all blessings. They are intended with inconveniences, but the good vastly outweighs the evil.
Regarding this one, actually, freedom of speech, This incident happened just after September 11th. I think it was September 16th or something like that of 2001. What happened was there was some Indians basically in New York shooting for a film. Okay, they had come all the way from India to shoot in New York. Actually, they were in World Trade Center on that day, September 11th. They left the World Trade Center in the morning of at around 8 o'clock, and 40 minutes that the incident happened. And they were going back to India on a flight, and the whole crew was there in the flight, and they were talking about their movie and how they want to do it, and it was some about bombing. And they were talking about, okay, we want to do this, then we want to do the bombing thing on here. So, though they had the freedom of speech, they can talk. And what happened was there were air marshals who immediately caught them, and the plane was landed in, I think, in Amsterdam or something like that. Though we have a freedom of speech, you cannot cross your limits. You cannot say fire in a public place. You cannot say bomb in a public place, though you have the freedom of speech.
Rhonda, final thoughts from you.
Okay. The Constitution was purposefully made very vague. I think the people that founded this country were brilliant individuals and really saw, I believe, further into the future sometimes than I think we see ourselves. And knowing that it would be added to, changed, and so I tend to, uphold obviously what the Constitution, what the spirit of the Constitution, but not to get so hung up on the specifics because life changes.
And that's all we have time for this discussion. On behalf of the Humanities Department at Western Iowa Tech, I thank all of our panelists today: Paul Guggenheimer, Frank Hefner, Manoj Patil, Rhonda Briggs, Don Dorn. And thank you very much.